Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Aurora Seasonal Cup Quarantine Special. We are ready to begin already. We've set up our brackets. Today we'll have some of the best players in Feria playing in best of 5 Crucible format. The first match is already set up here. You see Summerflame versus UTI. UTI, haven't really seen too much of him. Summerflame, you may have seen around. Not really gonna. We'll have plenty of time to talk throughout this tournament. It's expected to last around 6 hours. So joining me for this first match will be Scorch. Scorch.
Yes, welcome in everybody. Another hopefully great day of some great Feria action for a seasonal cup.
Okay, and I'm just going to confirm with our players that they are ready. And we will begin.
I'm very excited to see what our players are bringing out. As you mentioned, I think we have a lot of some newer names, as well as, of course, the old veterans that we're so used to seeing within the cups here. So I'm very intrigued to see if we'll get some spicy decks throughout the course of the day.
Yeah, and speaking of spice, we did have some nerfs last week to Crystal Spice and Therian Expedition. 1 Feria cost increases, so we have no idea what the pros are going to do with that. Are they still going to run Crystal Spice and all Therian Expedition? We'll have to see. People say they really like to run it in Rakoans, so we'll see if they actually do. But here we go. We're up to deck banning. If you're not familiar with Crucible format in Feria, it's a tournament-only format normally, that you can use it in private lobbies when you wish. Basically, the way it works is each player submits 4 decks. Those 4 decks cannot have any more than 12 cards in common, which is about a third of the deck. Once they submit their decks, then the way it works is each player will have an opportunity to ban one of the other player's decks based on the information of the average Feria cost, which you see here, and the total land costs of all the cards. So if you're an experienced Feria player, you can look at this and say, okay, this deck is probably Rakoans. This deck looks like Blue Jump, things like that. If the Feria cost is low, it's probably an aggressive deck. If it's high, like this one, it's probably more late game, like this green-blue deck here. So UTI is going to be banning, looks like yellow with a low cost there, so probably Yellow Rush. And Summerflame is going to be banning that greedy deck that we just talked about with the big evil whale on it. So there's the ban phase. After that, each player will pick their starting deck. And from then on, it'll work kind of like last deck standing, right? Or I forget which term it is. But basically, the deck that wins continues on. And the deck that loses is eliminated. Okay, so ban phase is over. We're up to the pick phase. And we'll have to see what each player picks.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see both of the Rakoans make it through there. Of course, on UTI side, we potentially have 2 Rakoan decks, as we see the card art featured there of Frog Tosser on the one that doesn't include any red cards. Meanwhile, from Summerflame, we did see a little flip back and forth, it looked like, debating on banning the yellow, but did decide on that blue-green, as you mentioned. So now it's just up to which deck these players feel strongest on to start out with.
Yeah, and this is one of the most critical decisions in each one of these matches. The deck selection, of course, the deck creation, and then, the picking which to ban and picking which to start with. It really sets into motion a chain of events that, it's really a big part of each of these matches today. And that's why they take a lot of time doing it, because it's really important. Okay, so we're into it. Summerflame versus UTI. UTI is from... Let's see where UTI is from. Japan. Okay, yeah. Japanese player versus US. Summerflame from the good old US of A. Good luck to both players. Summerflame has Crystal Spice in his opening hand, so that answers that question.
Right away, we're getting the answer to if players are still going to be using it. And of course, card generation is still strong. You can use that to find something at exactly the moment that you want it. A lot of times, you potentially could just use it to find something that you know is good in most situations. So It's interesting to see it still come out. We'll have to see how Summerflame uses it if we get that far back into the deck, as he did mulligan it away and start off with a few Rakoans here.
Yep, pretty heavy Rakoan deck here. Tethra for the Rakoans to ride on, I guess. UTI going for that card Hand Size Matters deck with Haunted Husk as an Ally Merchant as an opener. This is a really good combo. He has the combo he wants to begin with. He's going to put some 5-cost cards in his opponent's hand. I guess you... would you pick the Tosser here? I think you pick the Tosser, even though it's far away. You don't want to give your opponent a Tosser.
I think you potentially could go for Stargazer depending what else you're running. If you are running those treasure map pieces that yellow has, you potentially could have picked that. Otherwise, you're just looking for the Tempo. Frog Tosser we've seen for so long be a very dominant part of tournaments like this because the value that you get from the tempo that it provides. You're able to clear something out and have the 2/2 frog left over most of the time, and that just gives you control over so much of the board.
Yeah, and Summerflame would love an extra frog tosser, so that was a clear pick there for UTI. Probably not going to use it for quite some time, but this is the turn he gets to put down his Husk, his Haunted Husk, play another Merchant, and beef up his opponent's hand size, and start husking away. Now it's important that he played that Merchant back that far because of Rakoan Illusionists. You gotta assume each Rakoan can charge 2 at any time with the Illusionist, so playing it back there prevents that from happening. It doesn't save it from a Cannoneer, though, which we know is in hand.
I really like the pick there by UTI going for the Firestorm. You're seeing that your opponent is playing Rakoans. Generally, that's a deck that just spams out a bunch of little creatures onto the board, so being able to grab some AoE like that in a specific spot, really potentially strong flip turn that UTI might have later on in this game.
And we did see that Cannoneer take out the Merchant, and yeah, he has that Firestorm, and it is playable this turn. He could take out 2 Rakoans, that's a big deal, the Tyrannax lives on. But he has a Demon he could follow it up with, so actually this Firestorm, it's very rare you see it, but I think we're going to see it right now. Or is he gonna be greedy? He's gonna be greedy. Yep. Okay, he's waiting for a better Firestorm.
And here we see a big swing from Summerflame, that Illusionist that you talked about. Big trade coming out there, and Summerflame controlling this early game really well.
I think he's going to regret not using that Firestorm. I mean, if he had done that, that Illusionist would have had nothing to target besides the Tyrannax, but who cares? You know, the Tyrannax is already a 4/3. I don't know. I kind of like the Firestorm there. What else are you going to do with it? He can still do it, but now he only hits 2 creatures here. Like, it just would have been perfect. Perfect enough. The Demon would have cleared out the Tyrannax, and he would have... His Husk would not be challenged. I don't know. I like the Firestorm there.
It potentially was one of the best spots that you're going to get, and you don't know that specifically at the time, but it sets up for what your opponent could have, and then you look at potentially where you can get the maximum value out of it later on. And now, having seen the play the way that Summerflame went for it, of course, the Firestorm looks like it would have been the obvious choice there. UTI just looked like it was a little bit, I don't want to say greedy, but just looking for the max clear that you can get with that card. And because the Tyrannax would have stayed alive, just decided not to go for it right there. And now UTI is kind of in an awkward spot because you end up with that Frog Tosser. We were talking about the tempo that it can provide, but he's still 2 lands away from getting it. And if you develop a desert here, you don't really have something else to play. So instead, going for the +1 Last Nightmare, that should give... Oh, the Firestorm instead? Okay, I thought it was going to be the Tempo Colossus.
Yeah, I mean, so he just spent the Last Nightmare and the Firestorm to clear what he could have cleared already with the Firestorm and the Shaitan Demon. So, yeah, it didn't work out as good as the other line, but he does have the board again. He does have 2 Husks out. But this Freedom Fighter that he gave to his opponent with that Ally Merchant comes to bite him in the butt. Gets one of his Husks down. Did that Laya come from... No, Laya is 4 costs, so never mind.
No, Laya was naturally in the deck.
Right.
And we do continue to see a lot of clear cards come out from UTI right now. It's just about controlling what your opponent has on the board. Potentially we see another Husk here, even though Leia is in a position to clear one, if not both of them. I think we really still need to see another desert.
Yeah, these Husks are doing work. He's going to be down to his last one after this turn. Leia will kill one. But if he does not use... Since he can't use the Frog Tosser next turn, if he doesn't use Last Nightmare, all of his Husks will be destroyed. Likely. So, even though UTI had the start that you want with this deck, he just wasn't able to keep the Husks alive long enough to get a big enough advantage. He's got that Tosser that he can't use, does play his Colossus. Okay, I like this. This is what I like to see. He's like, okay, I'm starting to lose my engine here, my draw engine. I'm just going to go for lethal. So he's going to start the race. And that's actually a pretty big deal because I guess Looking Glass Phantasm is maybe kind of an answer to that. But he has no way to clear it next turn.
Yeah, it's a situation where UTI, as you said, recognizes I can no longer really defend at the pace that the game is going. I need to make the play to go for the win. There's a few cards in hand which can be used to potentially clear anything that comes out from your opponent's side. Even investing the Flash one and now finding another one is really big as well.
Yeah, that's a really good move because now Summerflame cannot block this Windstorm Colossus at all. He has no taunts, no way to clear it, so he's definitely taking damage next turn. Okay, he does use the Phantasm. It's going to lower the damage he takes by 2. Oh, there's an extra 3.
This is now getting really close. Now, we did already see one Wind Soldier used by UTI, so that potential endgame burst in one turn is starting to get a little lower. I wonder if you invest the other... Oh, okay, it's going to be Wind Soldier and Soul Drain to clear off the Phantasm on the close side here and continue pressure. I was wondering if UTI was potentially going to create a land and use the Flash Wind to get the Phantasm over onto the other side here, but it looks like it's just going to be a clear on the left and protected in that way.
Yeah, that's not a bad play. Once again, Summerflame has no answer to take care of this. That still doesn't do anything for him. So another 5 damage on his way. If another Wind Soldier is drawn, that's lethal. But I think he's used 2 so far, if I've counted right. And I'm not sure if he runs 3. But he could draw into lethal next turn. Especially by making that desert there. Crystal Spice, but I mean, it's one fairy now, so do you play it? Or do you save? You have so many cards.
I think it has to be a heal. You've seen the Wind Soldiers exactly as you're saying, and your opponent with a position where that looks like they're only out is hitting exactly the Wind Soldier, either off the draw or off of the Power Wheel draw. Summerflame plays around it, gets that heal, and...
Yeah, I didn't see the guidance there. That's pretty damning for UTI. He was close. He had ways to get lethal before, but now it's farther away, and since he's lost the board, it's going to be tough to get to that position again. Tethra and Garadan and Maginata in hand. Yeah, just drawing for some kind of answer. I think UTI recognizes the situation is in. But this is the Seasonal Cup, so, there's a best of 5. Every match has a best of 5, so getting more information about your opponent and keeping the play on is never really a bad thing for you. Making the clock run down, things like that. I'm not calling UTI as completely out of this, but, you don't see surrenders so quickly all the time here.
Yeah, it's definitely, especially in Game 1, something where you can continue to play out, force your opponent to actually get you to a position where you lose the game, and potentially have to invest cards where you can then get more information out of it. Exactly like you pointed out, in Summerflame's hand, we see all the dragons. We see Tethra, we see Maginata, we see Garadan. You have those cards that you don't potentially know that they would naturally be in the deck. Because it's a Rakoans, there are so many things that can come out since they're playing every color available. So if UTI is able to get any information here, that potentially could help going into the next game.
Covering the desert he made there. Plus, UTI didn't know for sure that his creature was going to be cleared that turn, but of the chances were likely it did happen. So now Summerflame has the board. He has a creature in range of face. UTI is down to 6 fairy with no creatures, so Frog Tosser could be played this turn, though. So that could be kind of fun. And he can just make a desert off the one he made earlier. Drop a Frog Tosser really close. That's actually not too bad compared to what he's got going on. I don't like it.
If you go for an aggressive one there, I think you can force so that the frog would spawn on the mountain in the bottom left corner as well. And then you've kind of forced your opponent into a position where they've potentially pushed too far forward.
I don't like any sort of defensive play here. Of course, if he did go aggressive, there's a Rakoa Copter in hand, but still, I don't see what the defensive play is going to get you. You know board control is going to be difficult to get from this point on. So I'd like to see some face tactics there.
Yeah, I think you're right. In UTI's position, you've already committed, based on the way that the game has gone, to an aggressive line. And your opponent is at 8, which potentially is a situation where you can look to set up lethal in some way. Even if this was played aggressively and then your opponent does exactly the same play with the Rakoa Copter, it has to be defensive. So then you're pushing them back on the board as well. Right now, if this Frog Tosser, depending on the way that UTI plays it this turn, either clears Laya or clears the Rakoa Copter.
No, he just played it. He played it and he used it on one of these Rakoans up here. Like, it already happened. Like, see, he's on the board. There he goes.
Yeah. So the Frog Tosser is going to get a...
Oh, okay.
If that Frog Tosser was aggressive, the Rakoa Copter would be defensive as well. So then the Rakoa Copter isn't in a position up the board.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
It still has to be pulled back defensively to contest the Frog Tosser after it was played.
Yep. Yeah, I just don't see where you're going to go with the defensive plays like this, Blightborn. Of course, yeah, he could just be drawing out the cards from Summerflame, getting all his ammo out. 2 Rakoan champions now. That's 15 damage right by the face. Blightborn can become big, but it needs a little bit more time, and 4/7 isn't enough to deal with any of this. He's got 4 Faria, 2 Soul Drains. There it is, the scoop. Summerflame takes game 1.
Yeah, very well controlled there from Summerflame. Really just anything that UCI was able to put out onto the board was immediately answered by the Rakoans. And then because you're having things like the Cannoneer or the Shield Mates, which leave bodies behind after they've been able to clear, or the Illusionist as well, we see Summerflame start to generate that Faria collection and then eventually just out-tempo because UTI was in positions where you kind of just have to go for something. Went for that aggressive line, and it just didn't pay off in that game.
And the Oversky is on fire. Red map here today. Do you see the same map as me? Do you see the fire map?
Yep.
Okay. Sure, I guess is the correct term. Okay, so UTI switching his deck to, looks like, well, there's Swarm of Carassius in it. There's Rakoans in it. But is it a Carassius deck? Is it a Rakoan deck? Is it both?
You didn't actually see the deck selection screen there, but I believe UTI had 2 decks that were both featuring a Rakoan on the cover. One had mountain cards in it and one didn't. Mm-hmm. I would expect this is the one that didn't, and it's more of a just straight Swarm deck. You have, of course, the Carassius that we see in hand, and then the Rakoans just put tons of bodies out onto the board and try to control, and exactly as we saw Summerflame do last game, start to build up a little bit of tempo and eventually just out-collect your opponent until they're not actually able to do anything.
Yeah, here you go. Swarm deck, Gift of the Rakoa. It's one of the key cards in this deck. One of your win conditions, really. If you can get a full board of stuff and then play this card, you're sitting pretty, especially against Summerflame, who really the only answer he has against big giant things would be Laya. And I haven't really seen anything else that can just deal with lots and lots of numbers.
Yeah, what will be interesting, as much as the buff that we're seeing in UTI's hand when that ends up being played will be a really interesting part of this game. But on Summerflame's side, we've seen those Illusionists and the Cannoneers. Those clears will potentially be even bigger because UTI will be in a position where you're wanting to wait a little bit, spread out all of your board, and then eventually get a huge gift of the Rakoa. if Summerflame ends up in a position where he can actually get those removals at the right time and limit what UTI is able to do on the board, we'll probably see a bigger swing because of that than we will see from the gift of the Rakoa.
I astound myself.
Yep. Look at all this swarming stuff. Another Crassius. Creation, Shieldmates. This is definitely what UTI wants to do. Will Summerflame, like Scorch was saying, be able to clear these things off before he gets off this combo he has in mind here? If you want to call it a combo, really. If you're playing a Swarm deck, that's kind of... you can expect a Swarm deck player to do that. It all depends really on how these Crassius go. He hasn't played a Crassius yet, so Summerflame might not know that he actually has any in deck. He might just think he's playing against Rakoans. So that could change the way he plays against this. He might not think it's important yet to start removing things. Okay, full hand here for Summerflame with 9 Faria. Does not use his Crystal Spice, notably. In the past, you would have seen people just play it right away because it's 0, so why not? But now it's an investment of 1 Faria, so that matters. Doesn't really need any cards right now that cost 7 or more, he thinks.
Yeah, Summerflame is almost kind of in an awkward spot where you don't have the lands available yet to play everything that you want. So many of these cards in Rakoans are low Faria cost. You can just spam them out onto the board. So you need the actual board space to be able to do that. And right now it's just too early in the game. So we're seeing really from both players' sides just holding off a lot of Faria, and we're going to end up seeing probably some explosive turns coming up.
Yeah, this is kind of the build-up to this game. Both players are just going to sit across the river from each other. They both want to get their stuff going. Neither wants to be the first to engage. So I don't know.
It's almost like a green-yellow sack mirror.
It behaves like that, yeah. And I think in this case UTI would have an advantage if his deck gets to sit around just as long as Summerflame's. UTI is going to come out on top in the late game. So Summerflame has to do some clears, but does he know that?
Oh, that's a really good draw for Summerflame. Coacopter probably will be very valuable in this matchup. Depending on the way that you can line it up, it can very easily clear Crassius later on once UTI starts spamming a few of them. Potentially not on the first, maybe even or the second, but the third, once you're able to get, I think that's 4 at that point, it summons. Then you potentially can get a huge clear with the Coacopter.
Cannoneer coming out. There is 1 pair of Shieldmates down from UTI's side. Still, though, not so bad. When your opponent has to spend a couple cards to get rid of your Shieldmates. There's a champion in hand for UTI. So, yeah, kind of a Rakoan Swarm deck combination type of thing. Surprised we haven't seen a Crassius come down yet. But that could also be, like I was saying, that could be to just kind of hide what's going on here or hide his intentions. He has plenty of Fair to play him. So, but I think they come down this turn because if you don't get him going now, when are you going to get him going?
Yeah, I'd be intrigued if there's any type of sacrifice cards in UTI's deck, even to potentially see like a Demon Wrangler or Shaitan Assassin, so that you do have some of that big removal from the Death Touch as well. Then you can play the Crassius and get an instant sacrifice on it so that your next one then has more and more generated right away before your opponent can respond. Doesn't matter so much in this matchup, but potentially for situations against blue where there is those transform effects, you don't lose one of your Crassius right away.
Drops Tidalani on a non-empty board, so it's just a 2/4, basically a yak, a prayer yak. But more importantly, it buffs up the champion. And there's the first Crassius of the game.
Yeah, big play there coming out from UTI. As I mentioned, both players really storing Faria. It looked like waiting for whatever that turn was whenever they really wanted to really go for it. UTI is the first one to make that move. Now, did leave quite a few creatures around each other, so that Rakoacopter in Summerflame's hand potentially could get some good value here. Just depends if you want to use it now or save it for those Crassius once they get swarming.
Yeah, Summerflame has plenty of Faria. How does he deal with this 8/8? He could just back up, play a Laya. UTI would love to see that. Get rid of Laya, but no. Gonna Crystal Spice, see if he draws anything better. Does take the Scourge Flame Spectre. And, well, he gets a taunt out of here, but it goes for the Dreamweaver. Okay, he's got 14 Feria. Plenty to spend, but he only has 5 lands. So if he wants to play the Scourge Flame, he has to make up to 6. And Dreamweaver is a couple turns away. Okay, you gotta make a decision.
I almost wonder if that opened up a combo OTK from Summerflame's side.
Oh, for 10 life and then Scourge Flame. Yeah.
You have the Dreamweaver down to 10, Scourge Flame, if you can get the correct aggressive land, as well as Cannoneers in the deck.
And Ruden's Guidance.
Now, one has already been invested, or just Rakoan Illusionists as well. There is quite a bit of burst in that way.
Well, don't forget, Cannoneer was nerfed to only target creatures now. You can no longer target things with Cannoneer. But it used to be able to do that, right?
Yes.
He did opt for the Laya option, so the champion could trade into there. 3 creations in hand for UTI, and Swarming Crassius. He has Gifted Urkoa as well, so if he wants, before he trades into this Laya, he could... Well, the problem is I don't think he played his Crassius forward enough. You want to play your Crassius in a forward position so that you can have it die. I mean, that's what you want the Crassius to do to begin with. You want them to die so you can make more. And because he played it so far back, he can't really do that. He could have put it up here. I don't know why not. I mean, you can summon it next to any friendly creature, so I don't know.
Yeah, it potentially could have gone right between the wells. The potential problem there is I think he didn't want to give his opponent a value clear because of the 3/4. But then you maybe just force it to be in a good spot where Laya then can't come down.
Gifted Urkoa? Okay. I thought there was a huge blunder about to be made, but... Oh, okay. Okay, there he goes. Trading the champion in 9/8 left over, so basically a reserve champion. Nice order of operations there, clearing off the statue in the end.
Yep. Big clear coming through from UTI takes care of that Laya that potentially would be one of the harder things to deal with in this deck. Can get a lot of value, exactly as we see there. The Rakoan champion does get to a sizable stat point, and Laya just directly contests that with the Death Touch. So being able to have something else left behind that is a big stat wall, that's going to allow you to clear through some of these smaller creatures to then push your Carassius up the board. But like you're saying, the Carassius again here was moved into a protected position behind the Recruiter. So it again doesn't really fit the way that you want that card to be played.
Wow, he could have cleared the Rakoan Recruiter this turn, but going for the greedy Reveler play, the Tethra Reveler, buffing up the Reveler so he'll eventually gain that Feria, which he really wants. He really wants a lot of Feria because he has a lot of Feria in his hand. So, yeah, could have cleared the Recruiter there, but Recruiter will get to take a bop on one of these shield mates. Next turn, the Reveler will likely take care of that. And yeah, Carassius still not dead. Like, it took so long to have this Carassius die. It won't be dead until his next turn, and then he can finally play another one. But then he has to wait for those to die, theoretically or optimally, so they could, creation them and play more. I feel like these Carassius were a lot slower than they needed to be. He has plenty of Feria. This turn he could be dropping 2 more, Okay, he gets a champion there. That means, I think the Tosser's coming out. Yep.
Yeah, as you're saying, the Carassius again not dying here. I really dislike that trade, not only for the Carassius line of eventually getting those swarming out, but you've now set up your Recruiter has 6 life remaining because it traded into the 2/2 instead of the 1/1, which means the buffed Reveler can just smash right into your biggest creature on the board. So it's a little awkward in the lines for UTI in the trades as well as the getting the Carassius going.
Since he didn't play his champion last turn, it's gonna have 2 less Rakoans on the field after this turn, I think. Tethra clears off the Biomancer, I would predict, and the Reveler clears off the Recruiter. So then the champion will be a little less powerful. Of course, the problem was he could only summon it in the back because of where his units were positioned. But yeah, this champion's going to lose a little bit of power this turn. He has no other Rakoans in hand. It's all fish. I guess you could always creation your Rakoans, but if you start doing that, you know you're in a bad spot with a Swarm deck. Okay, a little trick there, taking care of that Carasius for UTI. He was going to do it anyway, but by doing it this way, he leaves himself with a 4/4. Instead of, I believe that would have been a 3/1 or something, I don't know.
Yeah, it was a 3/1 before the trade. There was potentially another line there, exactly as I said, of trading the Reveler into the 9/6, and then the Mountain would have been open for the Rakowacopter to go to where the Recruiter is now. That would have cleared the Frog Tosser and the 3/1 Carasius. You would have had that 3/4 still in behind, and the Rakowacopter in a double collection spot, which could have been really strong for Summerflame. Instead, opting for the value trade Illusionist to buff up to the Doondrake, which now potentially sets up a good Rakowacopter to clear next turn. But it's Summerflame looking for the absolute maximum value out of every play right now.
Right, this Carasius that he plays this turn, he can play 2 of them. And if he does that, UTI, he's going to have to creation them, because if he doesn't creation them, Summerflame is certainly going to destroy them all. So, the only plays UTI can make right now are either do that or keep playing your Rakoans and try and get another big champion out here. But it's basically only one or the other, because if you play your Carasius and don't creation it, it's kind of a waste. I could see you creationing a champion as well. That wouldn't be so bad with this deck. I think he's Carasius.
Definitely.
Ooh, but he didn't wait. Okay, so he's playing the defensively? Okay, no Carasius. No, yes, Carasius. There's a Carasius. Does he have time to creation it? He's running out of time. Running out of time to make clicks. He's trying to click it. He's hold. Oh no.
Oh, didn't end up getting it and got the card draw off the power wheel as well.
Oh no. It's OTK. It's OTK.
Amazing. Summerflame does eventually set up. Wasn't exactly the line that I was picturing with some of the other Rakoans coming out, but Tethra ends up going for it. The Crystal Spice Discover OTK.
I'm really surprised. Well, one, I'm surprised he didn't play those the Carasius defensively. There's a Tethra by his face. I thought he was going to be defensive with them. But 2, yeah, he didn't even get the creation off, so even after that turn, he would have been in a bad spot. But there was lethal anyway, so none of it mattered in the end. Well, the thing that mattered was he didn't place it defensively. He didn't place any Carasius defensively. That would have made it a little more difficult. But there you go. OTK for Summerflame. This is going to be a 3-0 with this deck if Summerflame's able to pull this off. Otherwise, UTI is switching to, looks like a more normal Rakoan deck. We've got Crystal Flower in this. Yeah, we're not going to see any swarms in this deck.
It's interesting that we've kind of progressed to this point with the way that this series has gone, because you have what looks like both players playing a Rakoan deck, but it is Summerflame who started with it, potentially thinking, this is my strongest deck, this is the one I'm most comfortable on, I'm going for it right away, I'm trying to win with this deck only. Whereas UTI had the choice, because of losing game number 1, in the second game playing that Carasius creation that we saw, or playing the Rakoans. And a lot of times that thought process is potentially, am I saving the best deck for last just in case? Or am I playing the best deck in that second game to get the win right now, but then set my opponent up for potentially a counter pick? So we have now Summerflame up 2 games, UTI at 0, but both players playing a Rakoan that they maybe think is their strongest deck, just playing out the series in different ways.
So what happened there was Time of Legends is in UTI's deck, but it's only there to draw Ulani. So he had Ulani in hand, so he used it, which adds a random legendary to your hand, and he gets Junk Feet, which is not a very good card for Rakoans. It is a 4/4 for a brief period of time, so it's a Maceman that self-destructs over time for UTI.
It's an interesting decision there because Time of Legend is pick a color and then it doesn't actually. It's just a true random, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just any legend in the game. So it becomes
Right.
wild though. So junk feet,
Yeah.
not one of the ones you'd like to see.
I was trying to think if it was Time of Legend or if there was another card at one point that you picked the color and then it gave you one of that random legendary of that color. Because then I was thinking the red potentially he was going for. Hopefully you get a Garridan.
Yeah, there are treasures that will give you random colors, but not guaranteed
That's I think what I was
legendaries.
thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Here comes Lonnie, and that's 4 cards added to his hand. Cannoneers, Recruiters. This is pretty much what you want to see in your Rakoan deck. Rakoans versus Rakoans. Who will win? I think it'll be Rakoans. But these decks are slightly different. You can see I don't think there's any Crystal Flowers in Summerflame's deck. No Time of Legends. No. I'm sure he has Alani in there. We know he has the other Alani.
Yeah, Summerflames definitely seems like it is the more creature heavy. Trying to think through, I think we've only seen Guidance and Crystal Spice potentially. And then we of course saw the big dragons for the buffs. Meanwhile, UTI side, we see some more of those utility cards, as we would call them, because the Crystal Spice is in there, as you've been pointing out.
Here comes the first champion. It's only a 7/7. Not too bad for UTI to deal with. No solution this turn, I think. Well, he has some Cannoneers in there. Or he could just flower it up. Do you... Okay, make your prediction now, Scorch. Do you think this Junk Feet gets played this game?
I don't see any reason why you would.
Okay, I'm going to say yes, just so I'm different than you. But I think... This is what I think is going to happen. He's going to need a blocker. He's going to need a chump blocker. He's going to drop the Junk Feet. Like an emergency chump blocker. He's not going to want to play Rakoan because he wants to save for something else. Okay, here comes the Crystal Flower. And champion is tucked safely next to your face for 5 turns.
That is the thing. The flower here you're using as, of course, a control. Remove your opponent's big creature from the board, but usually you need that structure to come down in a protected position. So we see UTI put it in front of his own orb, exactly as you're pointing out. That is good for now, but if you can't control the board in the time that is trapped away, that is a big creature that's coming out right beside your orb, going to put a lot of pressure on you later on in the game.
Shieldmates into Shieldmates equals Rakoan. And another Rakoan. And there we go. Our champion in return. That is also a 7/7. However, Summerflame doesn't have any Crystal Flowers, so he's going to have to actually destroy that. He has a couple ways he can do that. He can just trade in his Recruiter, make an Illusionist, transform his Rakoan, and there you go. But that's cards, that's resources, so it's not a free trade by any means.
Yeah, exactly. Summerflame, not necessarily in an awkward spot, I would say right now, but you are forced to invest your cards into clearing out what your opponent is doing. Does have pretty good land development at this point, so Summerflame over the next couple turns will be able to go for the card draw off the power wheel every single time. It just depends if you hit something that you potentially can't play at that point, then you end up in a bit of a rough situation where your opponent has all the board tempo.
No cards left in Summerflame's hand. He used every single one, but he has a nice board left over. UTI, on the other hand, has a full hand of cards and not as much Faria. So we'll see what happens. I see some people asking in chat about whether they can participate today. Today is a special tournament. It happens only 3 months. You earn points throughout that 3 months, or a season, if you will. You earn points by playing in tournaments, participating in the ladder. And if you earn enough points at the end, you can participate in what's called the Seasonal Cup. That's what this is. And I know it's a little weird because in the game you can register for the deck, but you might not know why if you're not familiar with our Discord or our blog posts or anything like that. But basically, today is you consider it to be an invitational only for qualified players. But every other tournament we do is open. So there'll be another one in April that you can participate in. But for now, today is basically like a tournament of champions, if you will. Okay, so UTI now with his own Rakoan illusionist there to clear out the recruiter. Using the 4-1 and 3 fairy left over. I don't think it's a junk feet turn.
I'm not sure if there's any other reason in UTI's deck to go above the current lands. And we do see that actual the +1. So is very important to note throughout the early game here. Summerflame has had the Reveler over in the bottom right corner collecting every single turn. So while all of the battle has been going on the left, and both players have been fighting over this side of the board, collecting off their own well, it has been the extra Faria collection from Summerflame that has put this position where we're seeing the 10 Faria to 4 on UTI's side.
Yeah, and this clock is ticking down. The 7-7 champion next to UTI's face. So while it looks like UTI is maintaining some kind of even presence on the board, really, once this flower hatches, there's going to be a big problem. So he's going to have to get ahead of the game before that happens, or he's, if he's already playing from behind, he's just going to be even further behind. I'm going to change my answer. I don't think Junk Feet gets played anymore. I don't think he's going to have enough spare fairy to play him.
It would be interesting if some of these Rakoan didn't need to target Rakoan specifically. Of course, that would open up a whole bunch of other situations where they would be grossly overpowered, potentially. But if, for example, the Cannoneer could sacrifice any creature, then you potentially could see Junk Feet coming down and being a sacrifice target. But as you're mentioning, it's a Mace Man that eventually kills itself. So unless there is a position where you need that 4/4 body to chump block, it just doesn't really seem feasible to me that it ever ends up being a card that has a good potential use.
Yeah, Suicidal Maceman should be that card's name. Suicidal Mecha Maceman. Cannoneer comes down to clear this Doondrake. Uh-oh. Did you crash?
No, I'm still here.
Okay, 1 second.
The Cannoneer was too powerful and bopped you right out of the game?
It did. We'll be right... You can keep... Well, actually, I'll be right back. 1 moment.
Started off with a card draw, kind of as I was saying, has all the fairy and all the lands needed. So just drawing every single turn right now to get something big and swing the tempo back.
And we're almost back.
All right. So Summerflame ended up going for a Rakoan champion, which is an 8/8, just a little more powerful than the 7/7 that we saw UTI play, and to swing a clear into a Shieldmates. So pretty much the same position. Summerflame ended up with a couple big creatures coming down, and it is now UTI's chance to respond.
Okay, yeah. 2 turns from the 7-7 next to face. I feel like that's the big clock of this game. Okay, if you're playing one flower, why not play the other? Stack up your debt here. Man, it's just so hard to get into Summerflame's face, though. He's got this 7-7. Wants to get in there. Only has 1 Faria. Does have a Cannoneer left. But really, that's his only removal available to him. Going for the Shieldmates instead of the Cannoneer. 1 more turn. Okay, slamming the Spice.
That is one of the big things Summerflame needed. We're looking for, as we saw in previous games, those big dragons. Has the Faria to play both of those. In this situation, you're looking for the biggest swing that you can because you have the Faria pool advantage over your opponent. Crystal Spice gives you 2 huge cards to play, and that is exactly what Summerflame needed in this spot.
Yep. UTI is in a bad spot here because he's getting further behind on board before the flowers are even hatched. So, and he doesn't really have an answer for that. He's got no Feria. You know, at this point, I think we might see a 3-0 here from Summerflame. Ooh. Now this Spectre, yeah, he hits the other flower. So that means the following turn, the 8/8 will hatch out. And
yeah, it's as soon as he hovers the lands, the Spectre, that Crystal Spice right up top is, or the Crystal Flower is going to pop this turn from UTI. That's a 7/7. Summerflame's going to have access right to the orb next turn. Attacking into the other Crystal Flower, that is an 8/8. There's going to be a lot of pressure put on by Summerflame next turn.
I wonder if they harvest Crystal Spice from Crystal Flowers. Like, I wonder if that's where it comes from. So that's what he's trying to do, get more spice out of there. War Machine comes down. It does swallow Rakoan. There's a lot of damage sitting here, 13 for UTI's side, but there's about to be a little bit more next to his face. There he is. We saw him a long time ago, but he's back. Okay, what are the other Crystal Spice going down to 6 Feria? Okay, so I believe he'll have the +1 here if he wants to play anything but a recruiter, which means he can't make land.
That ends up being your potential issue, is can't make the land here. You end up with only the 7/7 to the orb for your opponent, looks like, but Summerflame's going to instead put everything straight in. Oh, gets the extra one from the Reveler trade. That is fantastic.
Okay. Well, that pretty much shuts UTI down. Yeah, once that's done, well played by Summerflame. 3-0 with his Rakoan deck versus the Japanese player UTI, who I think this is the first time I've seen him in a tournament, in a seasonal cup. So, good showing today. But, unfortunately, Summerflame had his number, and he can try again next time. Summerflame moves on. Let's see if we can take a look at the brackets real quick as we set up for our next game. Okay, give it a little refresh here. Let's see what we got going on. Okay, wow, a lot of results already. By the way, we are 10 minutes into the future. For those who don't know, we run on a 10-minute delay. So, you may already know these things. Who knows? We just saw Summerflame defeat UTI, so he will go on to play Nightingale. Nightingale, it's been a while since he's been in a seasonal cup. Superb Lizard defeated Jonesong, who was the lowest ranked player here today. That was kind of expected, but good to see him participating in the tournament. Mastermind beats iBlue. Giori beats Saturn 5. Ooh, Saturn 5's already out. He's streaming as well, by the way, on his channel. You can click on Feria on Twitch, and you can see him streaming probably. Amoeba defeats Seshimaru. Man, we had a lot of good games. And Gisfug versus Jayholic is still going on. Okay, we're going to go on a brief break and set up our next match as quickly as we can. Thank you for watching. Today is is April 11th. It is the Aurora Seasonal Cup. So there will be one champion today. We'll be back. Thanks for watching.